Hey, you're listening to Cracking the Code, the podcast for leaders building and growing service-based businesses. If you are in legal or medical or financial services, if you have letters behind your name that qualify you to do what you do for a living, you are in the right place. I am your host, Rob Riggs, here to bring you intel and access that are designed to decode how technology can be and should be impacting your growth. All right, let's get into it. Welcome back to Cracking the Code. Today, our guest is Shane Barker. And Shane, I want to thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, Rob, thanks for having me, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Sure thing. Why don't you take a minute and tell our listeners kind of who you are, what you do, why you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Shane Barker. I'm the owner of TraceFuse.ai. And really at the end of the day, what we do is pretty simple in concept. Now, us actually putting the business together and launching is a whole nother conversation. But what we did is we help Amazon sellers remove critical reviews. So these are going to be reviews that violate Amazon's own rules. So that's mentioning pricing, competitors, cussing, hate speech, anything FBA related. So if your audience doesn't know what the FBA is, you have a container full of product, you send it to Amazon, and then Amazon ships out. And if there's something broken late, if it's shipped out late or used, then great. Those are all things that are really on the shipper and not on your product. So we look at product reviews. So those are going to be anything in the Amazon space. And we've been doing this. We have 700 brands and we've removed over 16,000 reviews. So we're pretty proud of that number. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And out of that, out of those brands, how many of those are, Fortune 100, Fortune 500, and how many are small mom and pop?
Yeah, most of them are bigger companies. The reason why that is because usually, for us, you need to be in business a little bit and have some critical reviews when you first launch. Usually you're not getting critical reviews because you're working on everything else and trying to establish the brand and get some kind of traction on Amazon. So most of the brands that we work with are going to be bigger brands because they understand the value of, removing a critical review or a review that violates Amazon's guidelines. And they also understand that if they drop down like from a 4.3 to a 4.2, those can be really, really big numbers, and people always go, oh, what do I need to do to be able to get back up there? Well, one of the biggest solutions is removing a critical review, because then you, in theory, should be able to jump back up there pretty quickly.
Right. And so you're not removing, just for clarity, you're not removing legit reviews. Hey, this product is awful. Like, I'd give it a 1 star. You're removing specific reviews that violate Amazon's terms of service, right?
Yeah. So there's really two sides of it. If you're a seller and you don't like one of your reviews because they say the wrong thing, they say it's a, Chinese-based product when you're based out of the US. Well, those are things that, depending on what else is said in the review, we can potentially file on, but they don't necessarily violate Amazon's guidelines. Somebody can say something that's wrong, but that doesn't mean that it necessarily violates Amazon's guidelines. What we look at is where somebody said, hey, on Prime Day, I paid $30 for this. Now it's $45. This is ridiculous. Right. Well, it's like, well, obviously Amazon doesn't want people to see that because they're going to go, well, I'll just wait for Prime Day. Why would I buy this now if I know that it's going to be $15 cheaper? Or somebody can write a legit review and they can put, this is an effing terrible product, effing being a cuss word. I don't think we need to explain what that means. And then guess what? We should look at that. Could be a legit review, a legit buyer, everything. But if they use the F word in there, then that's going to be something we go to Amazon and say, hey, we're really not supposed to cuss on the platform. Using the F word is going to be a big deal. Now, if somebody writes, this is a crappy product, okay, that is something, it's still in violation of Amazon's guidelines for the most part, but crappy is like, I obviously feel very comfortable saying this on your podcast, saying the F word, not really. My mom would come up and smack me in the back of my neck if I was to do that. So I want to keep this kosher,
Uh-huh. For sure. So, and then what does that, what makes it worth it for a big company to do that on a mass scale, right? They've got 10 or 100, negative reviews, less than stellar reviews. How do you go about fixing that?
Yeah, so really what we look at is we do, they can come in and we obviously do an evaluation of what their services or what their products are. Most people, they'll do is they'll sign up for a demo, and I do all my own demos. So, and I only do that because I enjoy talking with sellers and how we can improve the software. There's always some things to learn there. But what happens is they can come and they sign up with us, and then our AI, what it does, it goes, they add an ASIN, so which is like a product or a SKU. They add that in the back end of the software. And then once, let's say they have 100 critical reviews, what happens is our AI grabs at it, looks through it, figures out what's in violation of Amazon's guidelines. If it is not in violation of Amazon's guidelines, we don't touch them. So we put those reviews aside. Okay. We only focus on the ones that have the most egregious ones, as I told you, like the F word, something like that, mention exact pricing. FBA related stuff, but it's a broken box or a broken product. That's an Amazon thing. Once again, not a product thing. So those are the main things that we're really focused on. And if you're a big company, obviously we have some really huge clients. It really just depends. They can activate and deactivate any of their products at any time. So if they run
Mm,
out of inventory, they can do that. There's so many different things. And we also monitor. That was one thing that we learned over, doing this for the last 5.5 years is monitoring ASINs is really important. So what that means is
right.
when you activate a product with us, now we monitor it moving forward, which can be really
Mm,
big if it's right before Prime Day or Christmas or whenever all the sales come in. Somebody comes and attacks you. Our system detects that, and then we manually file cases on the client's behalf to be able to, once because we don't want them to drop down and what we call the BSR bestseller ranking, which you want to get as close as you can to one being number one in any
sure.
category, and then we want the star rating to be able to stay above, at least a 4.0, hopefully a 4.3, 4.8 would be awesome. Kind of keep
Okay.
them head in that direction.
Nice. What about people who are coming and leaving, fake reviews? They never even bought the product. They're just, not having a great day. You encounter that, I'm assuming, at some level.
Yeah, so if we look at fake reviews, so most of the stuff we file on are against Amazon's guidelines, as I said earlier, but we do have a component where we can look at fraudulent activity. So what we mean by that is, so let's say you sell creatine, right? So great, you sell creatine, you have a competitor that sells creatine. They're very similar, right? Let's say they're almost the exact same
Hmm.
product. Well, all of a sudden you start getting all these one-star reviews, and what happens with our system? Because we know all the bad ways to do things, and so we're able to build that into our software to be able to detect that for our customers.
I see.
So I'll give you an example. So let's say you come and you're a competitor and you get a buyer's account, right, which is not too difficult to do, and you start buying my products. The creatine's only, let's say, $30. You buy 5 of my products and you give me a one-star review, and your one-star review is like, oh, I took this creatine and I ended up in the hospital. My dog died. My wife just left me, and I just found out that my grandma died and she didn't leave me anything, which I'm being a little facetious, but we've seen some
Sure.
crazy reviews, right? And you're going, how, oh my God, all because of this creatine? Well, I don't want that kind of luck. That sounds terrible. Once again, I'm being a little facetious, Spirit. But
Right.
the idea of this is like when you look at that, when you hear that, people look at that and they go, well, I don't know if that's fake or not, but I don't want to go to the hospital, right? I mean, I've seen people say
Right.
their legs have fallen off. I mean, crazy stuff. Well, guess
Wow.
what? A lot of the times that can be a competitor. And so what we look at with that is as a consumer. So how about this? I'll ask you, we'll put you on the hot seat, Rob. I know you know
Okay, go for it.
what you got going on. Yeah, don't be stressed out. I think you're going to get this, man. You're a seasoned vet. All right. So let me ask you. So, okay. So if somebody comes and buys a product, or you as a consumer buy a product, you give it a one-star review, how many more do you buy, Rob? You, just, you hate it. You hated it.
Zero. I'm
A hot zero. That's
gonna
about
go
the
with
right
zero.
number.
Yeah.
That's Rob, you did good right there, buddy. I was a little
All right.
nervous. I thought you might say one or two, but you really honed in there. Yeah, so we don't, right? We don't. So if there's a buyer that bought 5 of my products or my customers' products and gave them all a one-star review, that flags in our system. Because that's not
Okay.
how consumers work. Statistically is what we're looking at. That just doesn't make sense. Well, we look
Hmm.
at that, and then when we have our humans or people that go and do the filing for us, when we look at that account, we go and look at their competitors. If they happen to use that same account to buy competitors' products and gave them only a 5-star review, yet the products are almost identical, there's a
Yeah.
problem, right? Then we go,
Hmm.
okay, hey, they kept buying this product, said, oh my God, oh, they bought ours, their leg fell off, they almost died. And this one, they got their personal best 2 weeks later. I thought your leg
Yeah.
fell off, right? Like, so
Right.
once again, being facetious, but the idea of this is we look at this and we go, statistically, this doesn't make sense. And so we would
Hmm.
file an escalation case with Amazon. So that's how we look at fraud. We also look at if they use the exact same terminology. So in other words, so what they'll do instead of using one buyer's account, they'll have 3 buyers account. They hire a virtual
Right.
assistant. They'll copy and paste these reviews up there. Well, the problem is when you copy and paste it, you have 3 buyers that bought the exact same product and wrote the exact same review. Well, what are the odds of
Right.
that? It's like
Hmm.
0, right? So
Yeah.
those are the types of things that flag in our system.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. And then are you taking into account through comments that are not about the product, but maybe about the service, the delivery, the communication, something like that, where they did buy the product and they hated the service, the experience, and then went somebody else?
Yeah, that is absolutely something we can file on as well because what
Okay.
happens a lot of the times, the problem with that is if you're doing this through Amazon, Amazon does make it very difficult to reach out to the customer, right? And be able to make it right. So what
Yeah.
happens is because of that limited availability to be able to reach out to the customer, Amazon understands they make that a little more difficult. In theory, those are things that they would say, hey, if there's a no return policy, well, a lot of the times that can be on Amazon's side, not on the seller's side. So it's like, well, hey,
Right.
this is your policy. This isn't my policy. I can't reach out to them to make it right. Like I just had a customer, they sell wood boards, and there was, I guess, 8 of the little, or 4 of the little, not grommets, but little plastic things that go on the bottom so you can cut things. I guess
Right.
that
Sure.
wasn't included, and they got a 1-star review. And it's like, well, I don't think the seller wanted to save 32 cents by not including those, right? That's a
Yeah.
pretty big, but they couldn't reach out to the customer. So in those situations,
Mm.
it's like, well, how do I make this right? If they don't ever reach out to me and they're saying, hey, customer service was terrible, they never reached out. Well, I can't get a hold of them. So how does that work? So in
Yeah.
those situations, those are little special situations, but Amazon does understand that, it made it a little difficult to be able to reach out and do that. So there is some accommodations there. Is it 100%? No. I mean, that doesn't mean that all of those reviews are going to be removed, but our goal is to file on those, and Amazon can be understanding at times and say, oh yeah, that makes sense. Let's get that removed.
Sure. Okay. And that's where your experience comes into play.
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, speaking of experience, you've been at this a minute. You've got just about as much gray in the beard as I do. So what have you seen change in marketing over the years since you started a few years ago?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Well, first and foremost, thank you for that, the recognizing my beard, because if I took my hat off, you would know exactly how old I am, because you are way ahead of me on holding on, retaining your hair than I am.
For
Mine looks
dear
like a
life, man.
sparse village. It's just, and it's because I do Amazon review stuff, so I'm constantly pulling on it,
There
which
you go.
makes it so, so I'm going to be a bald man here very soon. So I'm sorry, what was your question? I was trying to think about the.
What have you thinking about hair and the hair product now? I'm going to start scouring Amazon for that now. Where can I leave positive reviews? No, where what so you've seen a lot change
Yeah.
in the world of marketing and technology. Leading into AI, and that could be another discussion, or leading into that. But what have you seen change over the years, and how you approach your market differently? What like where is tomorrow's world buying where yesterday's was not?
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously AI is, I mean, we're all drinking through water hoses at this point, right? I mean, there's just so
Sure,
much
sure.
stuff. Like you and I've been talking for 15 minutes, and I promise you, there's some new update on AI that everybody's super excited about, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's a lot of information. It's almost paralysis on, okay, where do I do this and where do I do that?
Yeah.
I think obviously AI, there's going to be, I think there's going to be huge progress, obviously, in AI. I think that's a Captain Obvious moment. Now, how is that going to affect, jobs and, how that's everything works? That's a whole nother conversation. I don't look at it as any different than, when the internet came around and when we have all these things that we're like, oh my God, what does this mean? If everybody's just going to buy online, nobody's going to come to my brick and mortar. Well, that's not always the deal, right? Like we always
Right.
get nervous about it because change is always uncomfortable. Nobody's going like, I can't wait to have the rug pulled out from under me and have to go learn this thing called AI that I have no idea even the concept of it or how it works. Well, like
Right.
anything, you want to jump in and get your feet wet a little bit, right? You don't need to go in and
Sure.
jump in and go and get rid of your whole staff and just hire one AI bot and pray that everything goes good. I mean, AI is still very reliant, obviously, on humans and prompts and what we put out there. So that's going to be a major component of that. But AI obviously is going to be, I mean, the future and the things that can happen there. And I always recommend people is, hey, just kind of do some small things when it comes to AI.
Hey, this is Rob Riggs, and I wanted to take just a second to tell you about Code Conspirators, our sponsor here. And we are a technology-focused performance marketing agency serving professional service firms. So that's legal, medical, financial, engineering. If you take a test to do what you do for a living, we help you grow your practice with websites and apps and software and performance marketing. That's organic, paid ads, retargeting, conversion optimization. And we're also doing a whole host of things with CRM, AI, and automation that's been bringing our clients tremendous value. If you're curious at all, go to codeconspirators.com to learn more. Now back to the show.
Think that's really what it comes down to with this, with the future of what this might look like, is really just getting a little better understanding of AI, where you think you can start to implement little things in your workplace, with your business. Use it as a resource, not necessarily something to replace what you currently have going on. My goal with
Right.
AI was always to just supplement things that we were doing, that AI or that humans could start to make mistakes. And that's what we talked about this a little bit, is about how we implemented AI into TraceFuse. That was a big thing for us, because what we
Yeah.
didn't want, we people are our people can only work 4 hours a day that were staring at reviews, because your eyes start to bleed. Not that anybody was hurt during our things. I don't want anybody to be mad. HR is still involved. Everything's good.
Sure.
Nobody died, and they're all at least 18 plus. But yeah, no. So it's what we looked at is like, hey, how are we going to be able to scale this, right? Because obviously there's a cost for everybody that we hire. And AI
Mhm.
was the answer because we said, hey, what we're really looking at is we have community guidelines, right? We know what those are. Those are very easily accessible. They're very right here. And what we do is we grab the reviews and we look at it and say, hey, a cuss word is also, let's say, the F word. So what we do is we look for the F word, the S word, the A word, all the other fun words that everybody says.
Yeah.
Right. We go and we look for those. And now what it does, it actually goes in, will tell us, hey, this has the F word. So this is against Amazon's guidelines, right? When
Yeah.
before we were looking at it, and as a human, you have to look at cuss words, you're looking for pricing, you're looking for mentioning of competitors. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
things that happen. In the beginning, the AI was good. Now it's even better because now we have all the competitors or a high percentage of them for each category, right? Because you
Mhm.
as a human, how are you going to know every competitor of Nike? You might know
Right.
Adidas and this, but there's probably thousands of them, right? So then how do
Yeah.
we
Right.
do that? How are we able to do that? So AI made it so that guess what? AI, as long as you train it correctly, and obviously the more that we do stuff, the more that we're training it because we're giving it more information, it gets better and better and better. And now it's been built into this machine, so we don't have to hire as many people. That there's errors and some other things that can happen. So that's how we said, hey, let's give this a try. And does this make sense? And it's been beautiful for our business.
Right, nice. That's fantastic. That's what we see as being the biggest win from AI as well, is when we're not using it to replace human thinking, but accomplish more faster, eliminate some of the errors, access to a much larger data set, and making immediate decisions about how to follow up. So that's huge.
Yeah.
Um, where do you see AI impacting? I'd say small business, but you can throw Amazon sellers in there as well. How is AI kind of impacting the where people buy?
Well, it's gonna have a huge impact, right? I mean, now everybody's using Chat GPT and Perplexity and all these other ones to search things, look things up, and find things. And so, obviously, major
Mhm.
competitor for Google. Google has Gemini and has their own, AI platforms that they're coming out with. And everybody has new features and new this and new that. As we talk about, drinking through a water hose. I think, AI is going to change the way that we do just pretty much everything online, right? There's going to be a lot of
Yeah,
different components. The idea of it is, I remember back in the day, and I say this back in the day, this is probably like months ago, make it sound
sure.
like it was in the 70s or something. But when you had to go write an email sequence or you had to go doing these things, you had to hire a copywriter, you go back and forth. And now you can use AI if it's trained under your voice. And guess what? It can create these prompts, or you put in a prompt and it creates these emails that
Mm,
are 70, 80% good. Right now,
yeah.
we're not at the point where you can just go ahead and go launch it. I wouldn't do that. You got to look at it and make sure it still sounds like it's coming from you. But
Hmm.
that has made it so there's so many other things that if you have one person that usually writes whatever 10 emails for your month, now you can do 20, you can do 30, right? Because you have
Yeah.
somebody that's doing some of the heavy lifting, and then you just got to verify to make sure you got your call to actions and all the other stuff. So that's where I look at things going really interesting. And the same thing with e-commerce. You want to make a decision. Oh, I want to know if I want to buy this product or this product. You just go put a prompt in there. Hey, I just did this actually with Stripe. So I was looking at different
Okay.
costs with how much money we bring in. There's a Stripe is not a crazy expense, but it's an expense that's been adding
Sure
up
it
as we
is.
we grow. And so
Yeah.
what I'm looking at is like, is there a better option than Stripe? Because Stripe charges me right around 3%. And they said, yeah, there is. And they talked about the pros and cons, and it went through a full evaluation of the tech stack at Stripe. Obviously, is better than these other ones, but these other ones are 1.5% cheaper. So we're evaluating this.
Hmm.
This used to be hours and hours of research, right? Of the where you had to take a
Yeah.
look at that. Now, I'm not saying don't double check everything that you're reading, right? I mean, there can be some
Yeah.
things that happen there, but at least it's a good start to get you going in the right direction. And then you could do a deeper dive into some things that maybe you want more clarification on. But it kind of blows my mind. And then the pictures that my team comes up with, pictures of me doing this, and one of them I'm an action figure that says the Review King, Amazon Review King. Like the amount of pictures and stuff is like, I just can't get over that. Like it's like there's another
Uh-huh.
one they just did of me with all these people behind me. It looks like I'm, running like Forrest Gump with a gang behind me that's ready to go take down reviews. Like that's been pretty fun to see all the images
Awesome.
and all the cool stuff that can happen there. I don't know how much more productivity that's going to bring, but it sure is fun to have those pictures. I send them to my wife. She thinks I'm famous. Life's good. Can't complain.
Nice. Yeah, love it when lives are enriched. So I
That's
know
right.
we're wrapping up on time here, but if there is advice that you would have for listeners who are not Amazon sellers, but they run service-based business, law firm, medical practice, financial advisor, if they have to take a test to do what they do for a living, what is that most important lesson that you would apply to them from your lessons learned?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you have a license or you're an attorney or you're financial planner or anything, I would be, AI is not going to replace what you can do as a human and understand at this point, right? I mean,
Yeah,
down the road, maybe they're going to get better, but at the end of the day, you still have the knowledge. People still recommend, understand you as a human, what you can do, what you can't do. So that's, I think, going to be the most important thing. What you want to look at with AI, and what I always tell people to do, I must be allergic to podcasts. I only do like two or three a day. I don't know what it is. Your cologne is amazing, Rob, but
it's what
it
it.
seems to get me
That's
to
what it
this
is.
Zoom call. Yeah,
I
it's
get
gotta
that a
be.
lot.
Yeah, I could tell. No, so yeah, I mean, what you have to think about is what are places that you could get in trouble with AI? What I mean by that is what are things that you as a human, have you been trained to look at, things you can say, obviously, the FTC of all these different organizations that monitor you. So you have to think about this and say,
Mhm.
okay, I don't probably want to give legal advice from ChatGPT, right? From AI.
Yeah,
But what I can do is I can create social media posts. I can help prompt it and talk about the things it can do, what it can't do, and set those parameters. And then you can go review those and then you can go and get those posted. So, no different than if you were to hire a human, somebody to go and put that together, you would still have to go and double check that because your license is on the line at the end of the day, right? So, you
for
don't want to
sure.
freely just go for it and say, well, AI said it. Let me bring it to the judge and see what the judge says. And the judge goes, hey, that's not right. And you're like, sorry, I was just busy. I didn't have time to check on it, Your Honor. That's
Good
probably not
luck.
a great conversation. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah,
Right.
probably going to have some fines and things coming. So, what you want to do
Yeah.
is figure out what I always tell people. Let's say you work 60 hours a week or 40 hours, whatever it is. Really look at the time where you have to be able to do that stuff. Like, give you an example. If I'm speaking on stage, there's no clones for Shane, right? Not yet, anyways.
Right.
We're probably still
Mhm.
looking, only goats and Shane potentially. But great. So that I have to speak, right? But do I have to go
Yeah.
and negotiate the contract? Do I have to do all this other stuff? No, I can train humans or people or even AI potentially to go
Mhm.
and have those conversations. So that's not going to, I don't need a license to negotiate my price to go get on stage. Now, what I'm saying on stage and if somebody else representing me can be a problem. So once again, figure out what you control, what are things that you have to do, and what are the other things that, email outreach and some other things, as long as they're not giving legal advice, financial advice, anything like that, that can still be very, very helpful. I mean, doing outreach, getting people interested, and then guess what? You get to do a meeting with them. Like that can happen all day long, curating
Yeah.
people because of AI. So look at where you're wasting time. Really, if you're doing outreach yourself, you're wasting time.
Mhm.
You can find a list, you can go get it out there, you can send this out. When somebody shows some interest, it can come over to you. That can be going all day long. There's no legal thing that's being said, there's no financial advice being given there. The idea of this is how do I take away this 20 hours that I was spending here and make it so I'm spending 20 hours here is where I'm making my money.
Yeah. How do you ramp up the value of your time?
Exactly.
For sure. Love it. Shane, this has been fantastic. I appreciate you being on. Is there anything you wanted to cover that we haven't gotten to yet?
No, man, no, this is awesome, Rob. I appreciate it. I know you're a
Yeah.
seasoned vet in the space. And so when we're able to connect, man, this has been awesome. I love it. You got a good energy about you and you seem like a good guy. And also, you have a dog named Lily, don't you?
For sure, I do.
Tell Lily I said
It,
hi. I saw that. Yeah, I'm a big dog fan. So I wanted Lily to know that Uncle Shane says hi.
Nice. I appreciate that. Our 8 pound greyhound, she is she'll be your best friend.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Yes, sir. I'll tell her you said hello.
Please do.
And appreciate you being on again.
All right. Sounds
Um,
good. Thanks a lot, Rob.
yeah. Right, that was Shane Barker, CEO of TraceFuse, dropping 25 years of marketing wisdom and some uncomfortable truths about reputation management, compliance first growth, and building systems that scale without breaking the rules. So If you're not selling products on Amazon, Shane's philosophy still applies. White hat strategies win long-term. Compliance isn't optional in regulated industries, and reputation management is a system, not a one-time fix. So we're dropping the links that we discussed in the show notes. And if you want more information about how to best leverage AI for your professional practice, definitely check that out. In there, we show you how to leverage the things that occupy your most time, how to build an AI system that replaces the things that you just hate doing, right? So until next time, we wish you the best, and we'll talk soon.